が消えても俺の夢は叶う。病んだ国民の心もきっと救えるさ。なぜに泣くドルトン。
国も同じだろうか。
受け継ぐ者がいりゃあな。
人は心だろうが。取ってつけたようなソウルが私の執念のティアマセイの叫びの前に立ってられるはずないんだぜ。
Will, heart, and soul. The three things that make up the all of an individual in the world of One Piece. If will is the drive of a person outwardly manifested as power, and heart is the personality of an individual, their quirks, their faults, their insecurities, then what exactly is the soul? In Whole Cake Island, it becomes more clear than it ever had before. Emperor Big Mom wields the power of the Soul Fruit, a devil fruit that has the ability to take away the lifespans of those whose will falters to her own. She then places that lifespan into inanimate objects, none of the life she transfers ever portraying the heart of an individual, much less the will, being that these animated beings cower at the sight of Big Mom's Mirror Vivre card. The soul is something representative of life in One Piece. When Big Mom takes a part of someone's lifespan, she literally grabs a part of their soul. If the soul is something directly tied to life, then does that mean the soul is mortal? When the Straw Hats arrive in the Florian Triangle, dark foggy waters greet them, a place absent from sunlight. There they meet Brook, a skeleton who has been granted second life through the use of a devil fruit, his soul immortalized artificially. His first appearance brings with it horror, but after the realization that he was finally encountering people, he quickly became himself. The devil fruit Brook ate regained the soul that he would have otherwise lost, and now the Straw Hats helped him regain the heart that was void from his lack of human interaction and unfulfilled promise. But still he leaves on short notice, because that's only 2/3 of what makes the whole. When Brook attempted to take back his shadow from Moria, his will was shattered. He decided to run away when he still had the option to stand his ground and confront his nightmare. But this place broke the drive in him to take back what was his and return to that promised place. So it only makes sense that when he began to drift again on that ship filled with his comrades' corpses, his heart was drowned as well. As Brook later reveals, at this point, what he wished for was death. Big Mom takes the soul of an individual, and from that soul sprouts an unrecognizable entity, because the soul is only significant when in conjunction with the whole. Brook wished for death, but in reality, at this point, the real Brook was already dead. Yet he was revived thanks to the Straw Hats. In these dark waters, he regained his heart by meeting the people that traversed on a ship symbolizing the sun. When the Straw Hats later disembark on Thriller Bark, a few of them get their shadows stolen as well. And the way these shadows function when placed in a zombie body is intriguing. A zombie at first shares all aspects of the individual that they came from, yet eventually the will of the shadow succumbs to Moria's ability. Even Luffy's shadow fell prey to this process. Luffy Wars may still act like Luffy, but if he is obeying anyone, you know it's not really Luffy. The crew had before met other people hiding away that also had their shadows taken from them. They themselves almost seem zombie-like in appearance. While you could chalk it up to a lack of vitamin D, it is evident that they directly mirror the zombies themselves. Both keep their personalities, but in return lose their will. They stay trapped in this darkness because they are too absent of will to fight back on their own, but also too afraid to return to the light where they will surely perish. They immediately bet on the Straw Hats to save them after witnessing their mettle, and Luffy doesn't refuse their request. Despite everyone else falling prey to Moria's induced nightmare, the Straw Hats don't waver for a second. Until they do. Perona's ghosts are an ability very similar to Moria and Big Mom's. Big Mom takes the soul, Moria takes the shadow and suppresses its will, and Perona uses her ghost to attack the very heart of an individual. Zoro is stoic, strong, yet unrecognizable when groveling and apologizing for walking on the same earth as everyone else. Usopp is the only member able to withstand this effect. While this scene is mostly clouded in a comedic tone, with Usopp declaring he is already supremely negative, there is also a slight hint of progression from Usopp's previous turmoil. Usopp once lost heart in the crew, his selfish decision to duel with Luffy and leave for good born out of his lack of confidence in himself. Yet it was Sanji who helped him realize that even if he can't beat someone like Lucci, the rest of the crew can't either. That's why they trust in Luffy to do what they cannot, and Luffy trusts in them to do what he cannot as well. Luffy can't snipe Marines from an absurd distance, but Usopp can. Luffy can't contest with Perona's ghosts, but Usopp can. At one point, Usopp donned the persona of Sogeking to try and make up for what he believed he was lacking. Yet at the end of that torturous road he showed his friends humility, and in effect his heart regained its previous status, and even better, grew simultaneously. While before he accomplished his goal as someone else brilliantly, now he is facing an enemy head-on as just Usopp. When his back is against the wall, he relies on Sogeking's might to dispel the foe. Yet it was Usopp and Usopp alone that eventually defeats Perona, not by hiding behind a mask and getting a one-shot, one-kill, 100% perfect hit, but by missing the mark at first, only to be later revealed as all a part of a deceptive play to set up his victory, even the giant hammer he uses contributing to this deception. All of it tricking his foe, none of it tricking himself. Usopp may be more rough around the edges than the great Sogeking, but at least at the very end of this battle, he is being true to himself as he fights, and he wins not as someone he isn't, but as Usopp. Zoro and Sanji's individual bouts tested their resolve in similar ways. Sanji fights a man as perverted as he is, yet Absalom shares none of his chivalry, pinning Nami in the bathroom to assert dominance, and putting her in harm's way in order to defeat Sanji. While Absalom uses Nami as a trump card to wound Sanji, Sanji willingly takes the blow in order to ensure that a woman would stay unscathed. Even at the risk of his own life, he kept to his chivalrous nature, and he is rewarded with victory in return. Before Zoro's encounter with Ryuma, he had yet to face anyone else with a swordsman's spirit since the East Blue. His last battle with a man who followed the way of the sword ended in utter failure, but a new resolution arose from it to never lose again. Zoro, like Sanji, is effectively nerfed due to the circumstances. He's out one blade from his previous battle, but here, he's facing a legendary samurai said to have slain a dragon. Even if it is only his body and sword that are his own, Ryuma still retains his swordsman's spirit. It's something that seems absurd given what we know about Moria's ability. His personality should be all Brook, but it isn't. While he can still only use Brook's techniques, his excitement at the prospect of facing a competent swordsman has no hint of Brook's persona. Given what we have recently come to know in Wano, the Black Blades are swords literally perpetually infused with the owner's will. Ryuma's corpse still holds that blade, so his soul still lives on through it. The last time Zoro fought a true swordsman, his three-sword style was proven useless against a dagger, yet here he overcomes Ryuma's challenge with only 2 swords. His massive growth since that fateful day is more apparent than ever. His reward is the Black Blade that will always linger with Ryuma's presence, a will to help pass on, not to inherit. This tiny, almost insignificant plot point is finally brought to a close when Zoro returns Shusui to Ryuma's grave, allowing Ryuma's soul to finally rest, and as a result acquires a sword absent of that same eternal presence, so that he one day can infuse his own will into his blades. In One Piece, the soul is immortalized through inherited will. Bellamere smiles at death's door, because she knew she wouldn't die, her kind soul inherited by Nami and Nojiko. The same with Hirolik, who entrusted his way of the Doctor to Chopper, and especially the same for Roger, who smiled as he entrusted his soul to the future generation. Dying isn't an excuse, because a man once said that he would return no matter what. These are Brook's exact words to Frankie and Robin. The soul may be synonymous with the life of an individual, but in a world where that life can last forever, what excuse does Brook have for coming up short? He died, yet his presence is still present, artificially granted through the Yomi Yomi no Mi maybe, but as Rayleigh says, perhaps everything in this world happens for a reason. Brook was granted a new life to find happiness with a new crew, a crew that will be with him to fulfill his promise, and a crew that he can tell tales about their ultimate success, instead of an ultimate tragedy. And Brook bets on the Straw Hats as well to reclaim everyone's shadows from Moria. Moria is a man who shares the same dream as Luffy, the first high-status major foe in the story to state that he as well is looking to become the Pirate King. But as I elaborate on in my Will is Power video, ambition in One Piece only makes an individual strong if it is backed up with substance. That substance being the symbolic layer that reveals the true intention of that dream. Luffy strives for the title of Pirate King for the sake of supreme freedom, and this goal manifests itself outwardly in his adventures through the freedom he grants to those willing to take his side, and those same people willingly help him in order to achieve his dream and their own. Because Luffy inspires freedom so effectively, the masses choose to follow him. The majority of the ones under Moria, however, never get the choice. Moria abuses his power to silence the will. He doesn't need to defeat a person by clashing with their ideology. If he can take their shadow, he can rob them of the ability to even contest. Moria chooses to achieve his dream by making artificial gains in his crew through his devil fruit. The reason he is so dependent on immortal zombies, born out of the despair in his heart still residing when he and his comrades were previously crushed in the New World. If he couldn't rely on natural methods to create a strong backing, then he would simply make up that backbone himself by cheating the system. It is never conclusive as to why exactly Moria strives for the title of Pirate King, but the best assumption one can make is an end goal that is synonymous with his methodology to get to it. Moria wants to obtain that great title with the most minimal effort possible. Since he doesn't have to worry about clashing with other wills, he does not bother to train his own, even going as far as to let direct leadership be dictated by the likes of Perona, Absalom, and Hogback. He wants to be Pirate King because he realizes that a title with that big of influence would enable him to similarly add new members to his crew with no real effort. He can sit back and laze around, because the arsenal he created for himself doesn't even require worry due to their artificial states. When they all perish, he simply swallows them up and uses them to gain power that isn't his own. Yet even after he had taken Luffy's shadow, Luffy returned with the strength of his crew literally at his back. He pushed his body to the brink to match Moria's ability, because he had something worth fighting for. Fighting for one's ideals. For Luffy, it is his first instinct. Yet for Moria, it is a last resort. If this battle is similarly dictated on the premise that will ultimately decides the triumph of an individual, then the result here is obvious. When dawn begins breaking, Luffy still has yet to defeat the foe. But even still, the ones among the crew who also had their shadows taken stand stoic, unlike the zombies who fall and become inanimate after being deprived of a shadow. While the rest cowered in fear as dawn emerged, these brave souls bet on the outcome that Luffy would win before they perished. They do not fear the light of the sun, because they themselves represent the sun through their journey. If this place is blanketed in darkness, a nightmare chaining down the people's freedom to walk under the sun, then they would do what they always do while following Luffy: free the masses from the darkness, allowing them once again to walk into the light, a light that they shed. A light that Brook has finally been exposed to once again after spending so much time in seemingly never-ending darkness. A light that gave him the courage to regain his tarnished will. He at one point ran away because he feared death, then eventually ended up welcoming it because his will and heart gave out, the things that ultimately make one truly alive. Yet here, as if to slap him right in the skull, he sees two men asking for death in exchange for another's sake. For Sanji, sacrificing himself for someone else is quite in character. With the evidence shown to us through his past actions, and especially his character arc in Whole Cake Island, we see his resolve in wanting to preserve life. Yet this immense kindness comes with a somber consequence, because he saves no room for his own well-being. This stemming from his low self-worth obtained from the trauma of his biological family. Knowing this, it adds a whole second layer to Sanji's quick and seemingly easy decision to take Zoro's place as the one Kuma eliminates. Yet, Zoro does not allow his comrade to do so. Looking back, Sanji once became enraged that Zoro would choose the path of his ambition over even his own life, stating that it is easy to discard a dream if it means protecting one's life. And this idea is consistent with what we get later on, where Sanji abandons his dream in order to protect the lives of his comrades. It was also Zoro who initially warned Luffy that if he did anything to risk his ambition being tarnished, he wouldn't hesitate to turn his blade on him. Yet here, as if to directly contradict that initial statement, Zoro is completely resolved to risk never becoming the greatest swordsman for someone else's sake. Luffy will become Pirate King. It's not just some cheesy statement, but the affirmation of his newly found way of the sword. In Alabasta, he learns to cut steel, not by selfishly pursuing a stronger opponent to further his own progression, but because a revelation came over him that if he allowed Mr. One to walk away, he would be endangering the lives of his comrades. He cut through what he previously couldn't because he now had something precious that he deemed worthy of protection, this bolstering the strength of his path of progression as a swordsman. "Will you try cutting diamonds next?" Mr. One asks. "No, that'd be a waste," Zoro replies. "Diamonds are precious. They are meant to be protected, not destroyed." "What do you bear on your shoulders? What do you desire once you've obtained power?" Mihawk once asked Zoro. He previously couldn't give an answer, but now here, finally, he is giving that answer to the audience. It isn't inconsistent that Zoro is now willing to give up the title of the strongest for the sake of others, because we see that his way of the sword, his ambition, is now synonymous with the crew, and using his progression as a tool to help protect their dreams as well. Zoro cannot allow someone else to take his place, because if he did, it would be the same as abandoning his ambition. And this great dedication to his swordsman heart made it possible for his will to overcome Kuma's challenge, thereby preserving his soul. He stands proud through self-sacrifice where Sanji would later lower his head, eyes filled with tears. Because Sanji submits his will to Big Mom and his family, and gives up his true heart that resides with the Straw Hats, his dream, thereby only leaving him with his soul. But if the soul is dependent on the will and heart to be truly alive, then much like Brook once did when he ran, Sanji effectively killed himself with that decision. Zoro lives, because he had the will to keep his dream alive. and didn't back down from the responsibility that came with it. A man who stands strong not because he survived an encounter that surely should have killed him, but because his newly set path that he has begun walking is proven valid with his success. And when everything's all said and done, Brook finally gets to play for the crew, Big Sake, a favorite song of his old crewmates. They would party and dance together like the Straw Hats are doing now, their symphonious souls immortalized in the tone dial that Brook has kept all this time for the day he is reunited with Laboon, so that they can all sing together once again.
私生きててよかった本当に生きててよかった
そらそうだ。